we got home only a couple of days ago. We were in Atlanta, shooting Spider-Man 3, and then we basically got in the last night that we could get back. So it's nice to be back, and it's weird. It's weird to not have anything to do in the daytime. I get to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I just don't know what to do. I'm like, well, I guess I'll just have a drink.
What do you do? Like, says, all right, cool. What's your pandemic go-to? Like when you got nothing.
I was lucky because I love golf, which is like the most boring sport for people that don't play golf. But for me, golf is like my favorite thing. It's the reason I love it is because I turn my phone off and can kind of like disconnect from everything else. So I basically just play golf every day with my mates, which is great. What about you? What did you get up to? What was your go-to pandemic day like?
I used to watch at the beginning. I would watch a film a day. And then like there were so many films that I like people had mentioned I'd never seen. And I was like, oh, let me just do that and just watch a film a day.
Searching for that gold in the gutter, a sense of purpose, right?
Yeah, sense of purpose.
So Tom, like, how did Cherry arrive to you? Because I first heard of it as an article, just like someone's talking about something really cool premise. That I was like, oh, it was amazing. And then they were like, oh yeah, Tom Holland's in it. I was like, oh, that's amazing. And so then, but yeah, I heard it as an article, but it's a book, right?
Yeah, it's a book written by a guy called Nico Walker. It was only brought to my attention. I was doing ADR for, I think it was Avengers Endgame with the Russos. And at the end of the session, they sort of took me aside and said, like, we want to make this movie. It's about this kid who's suffering from PTSD and falls into drug addiction and ends up robbing banks to feed his addiction. Would you be interested? And I mean, honestly, like, I'm sure you'd say the same. I would do anything with the Russos. I mean, they could direct anything and I wouldn't need to read it. I would sign up just because I love them so much and respect them so much. So it was a pretty simple process. It was, they asked me to be in it. I was delighted and honored that they'd asked me. And then we just went from there. And then that was the next thing I did. That was the next thing I went into, which was, it was great. It was fun.
The best thing is like having the offer in and then saying, like, oh, wow, I'm going to work. And then you actually realize the amount of work you do. So when did the penny drop? Because that's a roll.
When they offered me the job, I was just really excited that they'd offered me the job. You know, like I really looked up to them and of all the people that they could have chose to work with, they picked me and I was really honored about that. And then when I read the script for the first time, immediately I was like, there's no way I can make this film. Like, I'll fall apart. I can't hold on to a character like this for so long. And it just was all about preparation, really, and like really like setting out the character beats and figuring out how I was going to get from A to B in each section. And then the hardest thing was trying to merge the sections.
How long have you been back?
8 months.
Have you been evaluated for PTSD before?
Isn't that what we're doing here?
How much prep time did you have in terms of, and what research did you do about addiction and PTSD?
We went to the VA in Cleveland and we must have interviewed like 30 different veterans who were all dealing with substance abuse, all dealing with PTSD, but they were all at like different stages of their treatment. So the people that were about to graduate and finish their treatment were like really open and happy to talk about their experiences in Iraq or Afghanistan and their experiences with drugs. The people in the middle of their treatment were kind of warming up to the idea of wanting to talk about substance abuse and dealing with PTSD. And then the people at the beginning were really standoffish because they all knew who I was. And the last thing they want to do is admit some of the things they've done to some 24-year-old British actor. Like they haven't come to seek help to help make a film. But like what I've learned from the process is that there's such a bad stigma on going to rehab. Like if someone says, oh, I'm going to rehab, people are like, oh, that means you up. But going to rehab should be something that we celebrate. It's someone who's recognizing that they have a problem and that they need help and they're seeking help, and that should be something that we lift people up. So I really hope that from watching this film, people will understand that there is a problem with opioids around the world and it's on our doorstep.
Are you currently on any medications?
Xanax. For my anxiety, but they don't work anymore.
How's your pain level?
Like mental pain or physical pain?
Both.
9 out of 10.
Ooh. Have you ever heard of OxyContin?
What I found really fascinating is how the PTSD and a kind of a fear that the character has within him, how that leaks into the relationship, the central relationship. And so how did you arrive to it and what are your thoughts on it?
It was all just to do with research. I mean, talking to people who I'm so grateful were so open to share stories that I don't imagine they share with many people. PTSD can affect people in so many different ways. And it was about finding that balance of, do we want Cherry to go through a full blackout, or does he just want to have a panic attack in this moment? And you know, it just took a load of planning. And PTSD is a terrible, terrible, terrible disease that people suffer from every day. And I think for us, it was really important to get it right, because otherwise you wouldn't believe his spiral into addiction.
I had to pause it. I go, oof, I gotta get my head right for watching this. It was intense. Incredible performance, man. It's testament to the work you put in. But it really stayed with me, and I was like, wow, he got into a place.
Thank you. I think for us, the backbone of the film is this love story. It's this idea that he's constantly chasing the love of his life, but he can never really fulfill or satisfy her in the way that she needs to be. And I think that's why he ultimately spirals into doing drugs. And then sadly, she kind of joins him because it's their only way that they can be together.
You said something really interesting in that. So how do you feel he doesn't satisfy her? Because it feels like that's an agent of pushing him over the edge. And so specifically, he feels he's lacking when it comes to that relationship.
It's just who he is as a person. He always feels like he falls short. Like, we were really strategic in the beginning of the movie of making it so that Cherry never succeeded. You know, like, he gets fired from his job, his girlfriend hates him, his parents treat him like a piece of shit. He drops out of school, and then he's just kind of this hollow shell of a person, and the only thing he can kind of do is join the army. So we always wanted to try and tee up this idea that no matter how hard he tries, he always falls short. One of the hardest hitting things for me was most of the veterans that I spoke to were all medics, because obviously my character's a medic, and they were saying that it's tough being out in the field, and it's hard because you're in firefights and they're long days and it's hot and it's scary, obviously. But when you come home, your job doesn't finish, because all the people in your troop are like your kids, and it's your job to make sure they're okay, to bandage them up, to stitch them up, and all that sort of stuff. So when you lose someone, it hits you even harder than it would hit someone else. So when Cherry ultimately loses all of his friends, that for me is the tipping point where he's kind of given up on life. And he's like, well, there's nothing left for me anymore, because no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard I push myself to do the right thing, I always end up making A, a bad decision, or B, the wrong decision, even if he thinks it's the right decision.
There's not a lot of footage of him. So you had like a bigger target as of creating, characterizing the character. Did you reach out to him, or did you not want him part of the process? Do you want to talk to him? What was that in terms of, like, because he was a real guy? How did you feel about that in terms of, like, when you're in your portrayal? Did you just want to do your version? What was it?
I wanted to do his version because I think, like any actor, when you're portraying a real person, you have like a duty to do justice to their story, and you can't just take their story and do whatever you want with it. For all sorts of different reasons, I wasn't allowed to talk to him. He's still in prison, I believe. And there was at one point a call that was scheduled between the two of us, which ended up not happening. I would love to have spoken to him, because I'm sure you're the same. The more information you can get about a character you're playing, the better and the easier your job is. But unfortunately, no, I've never spoken to him. I'd like to speak to him. He'd be the one person that I'd be really nervous about seeing the film, because we've taken a piece of his life and we've turned it into a story. And I hope he won't be offended by it, or he's definitely not going to enjoy it, but I hope he can look at it and respect the sort of the art behind it and the creative choices behind it.
What's the bank robbing scenes like? How was it like to shoot those?
It was strange, man. It was really strange because it was such a small crew. It really did feel like I was robbing a bank. And when the alarm would go and I'd be pointing a gun at this poor lady's face, I could not shake that what I was doing was wrong. And of all the things I had to do in that film, that's the only thing that kind of lasted with me when I would go home from work. The thing that I didn't do very well, but I would just blow my voice out all the time. Like they learned very quickly that they'd have to start with all the talking stuff, and at the end of the day I'd have to shout, because as soon as I start shouting, within 3 or 4 takes, I would have no voice. I just would be like this for the rest of the day.
I had that experience about blowing my voice out on Judas.
Yeah, you must have done, yeah.
There was a speech where because I asked him to not do two speeches in the same week, because I'm literally doing probably 10, 12 hours of me just speaking to a crowd. There was a day when I was on the steps with the Rainbow Coalition, the Young Patriots and the young Hispanic community, and then my voice is like, I'm like, I couldn't do it, and they had to put the microphone and kind of do that. But it's a lot. You have to kind of really, when you're doing those kind of scenes, you have to invest in your voice and like kind of get strong and muscular. I kind of felt like I was in a play.
Did you feel a sense of like being, I mean, obviously you are on stage delivering a speech, but was there that same like, because I get nervous going on stage, was there that same kind of nerves going on there and delivering a speech in front of a bunch of people?
Yeah, you kind of go, it's the same, because I've done a couple plays and it's the same process of like, oh, I'm scared. Well, you got to do something about it. Just do it then. Just do it. Boom. It's just like, you just got to go.
But for you though, so Judas and the Black Messiah, like when did that come to your lap? Like how did you find out about that? What about the script? I mean, obviously the subject matter and the story of Fred Hampton is incredible, and as an actor, I'm sure really appealing to try and convey. But what about the script and the director did you really sort of go, yeah, this is my next project?
Funnily enough, I got approached about it doing a Marvel film. I was doing the reshoots for Black Panther, and Ryan Coogler, who's directing it and produced Judas and the Black Messiah, he pulled me to the side with Zinzi Coogler, who also produced Judas and the Black Messiah, and was like, oh, we're making a Fred Hampton film and we really love you to play Fred Hampton. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, oh, wow. I mean, in that sense, it was just like an honor. And they sent me a 2-page treatment, and it was one of the best treatments I've ever seen. And then like, because it was just clear and it knew what it was.
I'll tell you what, one thing that you absolutely nailed, which like I couldn't believe, I was watching the film and then it froze, like something with the link broke. So I was like, I'm going to go and watch one of his speeches to just see what he was like in real life. And I could not believe how much you sounded like him.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was amazing. Because I always get really intimidated by the idea of trying to imitate someone because I don't know if I have that kind of parrot gift. But that must have been quite daunting, because it almost takes away some of your creative freedom as an actor, because you're trying to recreate something that someone can go and watch. Like, how did you deal with finding the balance between imitating something that people can readily see and is available, and also bring your own sort of creative spin to a character and a story?
You had to kind of go, oh, this is to be about your belief in the interpretation, And this is what I feel. And for me, it was kind of like watching his videos and watching his stuff and taking in how he was moving me and going, well, how can I move someone the way he's moving me at this time? You know, and then kind of replicating that energy and that spirit and then just leaning on certain phrases or certain words or certain cadence or like a certain rhythm that he'd hit.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
There's so much material that you can look into, and like it must be hard to navigate what is useful material and what is material that's just good to know. Like, did you get an opportunity to speak to his son or his fiance? Like, what was that process like?
We sat down with Chairman Fred Jr. and Makua, and then they asked us our intentions. They asked us why we're telling the story, where we're coming from. And we had to kind of sit there in Chicago and speak with them. And then Mama Kuya took me and Dominique to the side and asked us more questions about what does art mean to us and how will you get to the characters. And it's very especially difficult for Dominique, who's actually talking to the person she's about to play. And yeah, and then after that, they blessed us. You know what I mean? They really blessed us playing Chairman Fred and Mama Kua. Then I kind of went to Cleveland 3 weeks before the shoot, like a month before the shoot, and kind of just locked myself away. And I would just focus on scripts, read what I needed to read. I had collected all this incredible information. It's kind of like, all right, cool. Just spent the whole day reading all this stuff, like reading about this and kind of creating a kind of timeline of like how it got to this time and kind of arriving to this time as a person that was from that time as opposed to a person in 2019 that's looking at this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's got to a point where I had to stop doing research and I had to focus on portraying him. And so that's why I kind of like really get all the information that I collected, like not having it as information, having it as knowledge. Then I read the whole Black Panther reading list. There's a whole reading list. Look, I read the majority of the books. There's a reading list that they have to read in order to politically educate themselves in order to be a fully fledged Panther.
Deputy Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois Black Panther Party.
Was there like an article or a clip or a piece of information that was like the most vital piece of information you found? Was there like one thing that really sort of shaped, that was like the turning point? Be like, oh, right, I've got it now. I know how to do this.
There was an incredible dissertation that was given to me that was about that time. And it was about the Black Panther Party in the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party and the gangs that were around during that time. And it was just a piece about that specific time.
Yeah.
It gave me an understanding of everything else that was around. And you just don't see that. The thing is, there's a lot of information about Chairman Fred Hampton's death, but there's not a lot of information about how he lived. And you can tell that's purposely done. Did
you find, especially with like the current climate in which we're in now, like politically, about like race and all that sort of stuff, like the weight of telling telling the story of a real life character like this must be really quite heavy and something that, you know, a lot of people probably couldn't handle. So how did you like deal with the pressure of doing justice to this character and also like educating people? Because like, I'll be honest, I didn't know that much about Fred Hampton before I'd seen your film. It's not something I knew about.
It was a lot of pressure. And I think the only moments where I kind of let it go is when I realized it's bigger than me. And if it's making about you and the pressure that's on you, then you get in your head a bit and then you just overthink and then you're trying to do stuff because you want to look. It's just like, I'm a vessel and this is coming through me. For whatever reason, I don't know why I've been picked at this time and this story been made at this time, but this is coming through me and it's honoring that. And then when I operated on service, then I was able to actually just let go and just be in it.